Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of the Christian Ethics Made Easy. In this episode, we will be discussing the topic of war. The topic of war in the Christian community can be categorized into three groups: that of activism, which means always go to war whenever your government goes to war; pacifism, which means never go to war when your government goes to war; and selectivism, which means sometimes go to war when your government goes to war. In short, it is always, never, and sometimes. First, let us look at the arguments from activism, which means always go to war when your government goes to war. Activists argue by providing several scriptures showing that God commands you to submit to your government, from Adam to Noah to Abraham, Moses, and David, all the way to the New Testament, Jesus affirming, "Give Caesar that which is Caesar's." John the Baptist not rebuking the soldiers for being in the army, from Paul telling his audience to submit to government as it is ordained by God. Therefore, if your government commands you to go to war, you must obey the government and go to war. For more details and specific scripture references, see our video titled Jehovah's Witness and War. Now, pacifism, the view that says you should never go to war. They argue that you must obey God before government, and God says not to murder, the Ten Commandments. They'll also argue that Jesus taught to turn the other cheek. Those who live by the sword shall die by the sword, and not to resist an evil man, to love your enemies. The war is mass murder, and it is always wrong to go to war. See the video titled Jehovah's Witness and War for more details and specific scriptural references. Okay, now the view of selectivism. They attempt to show that both activism is incorrect and pacifism is incorrect. They show that activism is incorrect by arguing that there are biblical examples of times when you are supposed to obey God before government. Examples would be Daniel in the lion's den, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, the Hebrew midwives, the apostles refusing to stop preaching the gospel, etc. Then they will show that the pacifist is also incorrect, that there are times when it is necessary to obey your government and participate in war. Biblical examples would be Abraham going to war to rescue Lot and his family, which was blessed by the priest of God. And this was before Israel was appointed as a theocracy. Jesus recognized Pilate's power given to him by God. Jesus taught to turn the other cheek, not to resist an evil person, and those who live by the sword shall die by the sword. Now, these were lessons about non-retaliation, that we are not supposed to seek revenge as an individual. We are to bless those who curse you and to pray for those who hurt you, to love your neighbor as yourself, even your enemies. This has nothing to do with whether or not you should participate in war when your government commands you to, or about self-defense. As Jesus knows the law of self-defense in the Old Testament, that the killing of an intruder is justified in times of self-defense. The Apostle Paul recognizes the power of government given by God to yield the sword to punish evildoers. And John the Baptist said, in order for the soldiers to be saved, they must be content with their wages as soldiers, nothing about leaving the army. It is evil not to resist evil. To permit mass murder when you can prevent it is morally wrong. To allow rape or torture, etc., when you can stop it, is morally wrong and inexcusable. Not resisting evil is sin of omission. When you know what you ought to do, and then you do not do it, it is sin. The selectivists provide what is called a just war theory. A just war would be a war in defense of innocent people. A just war would be fought to execute justice. A just war is a war that is fought by a government and must be fought justly. The conclusion: Christians should be peacemakers and not war makers, and resort to war only when all efforts of peace fail, to encourage obedience to government while preserving the right of conscience to ignore unjust commands. Well, thank you so much for watching. For scriptural references and more details, please see our other video titled Jehovah's Witness and War. Your questions and suggestions are welcomed. Please post them in the comments below.